Welcome back. Now, the Reynolds-Down chase normally provides a good pointer towards the RSA chase, but this week there was only 4 runners, and one of those called Virac run disappointingly. Deputy Dan, blinkers for the first time, wasn't so good, made one mistake and then sort of went past Virac, and then we were left with one of those Mr. Pipe winners, Ainsi Vidiles.
Yeah, I'm glad you...
I'm going to get ridiculed for that, no doubt.
I'm glad you pronounced it, but yeah. I was at Wincanton. I watched this live on Saturday, and my feeling was immediate after the race from watching it, I was a little bit down on it because with Deputy Dan, he's becoming a very frustrating horse with the blinkers on for the first time. Obviously looks like, you know, he's a bit of a plodder, to say the least. And Virac of Paul Nicholls, even though it was going off 1-2 favourite, it must be pointed out that horse was very disappointing at Kempton behind Connor Green. And I'm not convinced we're seeing the same Virac that we've seen perhaps at the beginning of the season, the horse that was bolted up
and
at
I felt that
Doncaster.
as well, to be honest with you, because behind Coney Green, I mean, Coney Green has obviously substantiated that performance by winning a really good race against the likes of Tarquin de Sil and Ubon de Sobo. But I didn't feel that race, the Kempton race, was run that well. And I made the point on Saturday that I doubted that was good form. And I think the value, it went off at 1-2, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I just felt the horse wasn't quite right. And certainly 1-2 was poor value.
Yeah, and when you imagine the David Pipe going off 6-1 and 2-1, I mean, perhaps we should doubt the form. Take nothing away from the win. He was held up in touch. I thought he jumped really well. The question was before the race, would he handle the ground? And we had soft conditions there. To me, he looked like he handled them fine. He clearly handled better conditions. But let's just have a quick talk about the form. This was him stepping up to 3 miles. Previously, he'd run over 2.5 miles at Cheltenham behind Splash of Ginge over 2.5. So I was slightly confused. Now, there's either two things. Either I've undercooked Splash of Gins and he's better than I thought, or more likely is that he's actually improved for the step up here to 3 miles. But he did it. To be honest, when I watched the replay back a few times a day before coming on the show, I was more encouraged by the victory than I was initially. But I've just in behind when the Deputy Dan and Virac, I couldn't really get at this race because I'm not sure what Deputy Dan came here and what Virac, so I couldn't really
if you go back to the early part of the season, Virac actually beat Deputy Dan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the point at the venue on Saturday at Ascot was the fact that Deputy Dan made that mistake but still managed to go back past Virac, you know, so that to me, and Virac was struggling for quite a way out.
As he was at Kempton.
Yes, but he faded at Kempton.
Yeah, exactly.
And he did here.
And it is very much
maybe his early season horse, Matt?
Maybe.
Because Paul Nicholls has another one, Wonderful Charm, that seems to be an early season horse.
Yeah, he seems to have a few of them, yeah. Don't know. Maybe it's, you know, it's overwhelming. I've got my doubts.
No Cheltenham.
I don't think so. This is a horse I'll particularly be taking on just because I don't believe that he's really, for me, improved, you know, the £10 for stepping up from 2.5 to 3 miles. I'm just questioning behind. I might be wrong. Take nothing wrong away from the horse. He's a Grade 2 winner now, but, you know, he's got all the devices. He has, you know, he looks like a superhero with the blinkers on, and he's got the tongue strap as well. So I'm going forward. He is a horse that I'm just, at the moment, just going to be taking on. And
Deputy Dan, disappointing from the hurdle form. He's not made the chase with at all.
The blinkers first time, you know, he just looks like, to me, he just looks like a bit of a plodder. Yeah. You know, he just does everything. He looks like he just wants...
Probably end up 3.5 miles at football one day.
Yeah, probably.
Mr. Sher won't be happy with me saying that. The Red Mills Chase, Champagne Fever, no doubt that was put in as a... I suppose to give it the horse some confidence going forward because it had fallen before that. Didn't take the harder option where Ballycasey rode it, running the Ascot race. But what did you think of Champagne Fever? Jumping was good, but wasn't tested that much, was it? It
wasn't tested, but what I did take from this race, for the first time I've seen with Champagne Fever, is he didn't show that early keenness that he had in early races. He seems to have lost that fizz, and he was actually, before my worry with him, and the reason I wanted him at 2 miles was because he wanted to get on with things. But I noticed for the first time over this 2.5 miles that actually, I mean, he didn't have Ruby on, he had Paul Townend in, that he was more settled during his race.
Do you think that was the way that Willie Mullins had advised the horse to be ridden?
Well, I think...
Because I think Champagne Fever would try to go Silviana Conti.
I think Champagne Fever, I think if Ruby had it his way, he didn't necessarily want to, I mean, especially when it was dropped to 2.5 miles the time before, I don't think it was a case that Ruby wanted it. The horse took him there. You know, he wasn't going to have a fight with Champagne Fever and thought, well, you know, you're there in a similar case. But he does seem to have got that fizz out of him. And that's bad news for me because I really, really want him to be going for a champion chase. But now I've seen that, I do wonder whether they'll go that route. I still hope he goes that way. But that's what I took from it. You know, admittedly, look, listen, he was 8 to 15 favourite. He was entitled to beat him the way he did. What he went to prove was his well-being after.
But I would have liked to see Champagne Fever up against Ball of Success. That would have told us more, surely.
Absolutely, but we're never.
They avoid each other, didn't they?
We know. We're never going to. You're not going to get our wish with things like that. But it was good to see him back. I mean, he jumps ever so well, doesn't he, through his races? But I just thought for the first time that fizz had gone out of him, and that's. I guess it's a positive. I hope it is, and not just a sign. Perhaps the horse is still not quite feeling himself. I don't know.
OK, another Irish race was the Red Mills Hurdle. Kit and Rock, who both of those two at the front went clear of Tiger Roll, who's again disappointed this year. Kit and Rock, what do you make of that going forward? Yeah,
Kit, it's Grade 2 winner again. It was 7 to 4 on. Winning 12 lengths, did everything how it should have run. Tiger Roll fitted with the blinkers again for the first time. I mean, Kit and Rock's got an entry, obviously, in the Cheltenham Hurdle, which we're going to be speaking about shortly. On a strict line of form, if you take Tiger Roll's run behind Hurricane Fly, it would put Kit and Rock about 4 lengths behind Hurricane Fly. So he's not
only a 5-year-old, though.
Only a 5-year-old, but again, the fact he's only £4 behind Hurricane Fly, I'd think that really, you know, I think it devalues Hurricane Fly's form. But we will come on to that a little bit later.
You're saying that Kit and Rock would get within 4 lengths of Hurricane Fly. People throwing things at the TV sets now.
Well, if you take the strict line with, I'm just on form on the strict line with Tiger Roll, how he's beaten. If you go and look how far Hurricane Fly beat him, and bearing in mind Hurricane Fly was not being eased up like Kit and Rock was, he was being driven out towards the line. If you go and have a look and take form literally, it would put him 4 lengths behind.
OK. The Betfred Hurdle was another one that took place, was won by Closing Ceremony. What do you make of that form? See You at Midnight we had at Fisher's Cross, and disappointed again in that race. Just a note on that Fisher's Cross. What happens to it at Fisher's Cross now?
Don't know. I'd imagine that they won't want to run it again this season. They clearly haven't got to the bottom of the problems that they experienced last year. It was just very sad.
Because Rebecca always says, you know, the horse works perfectly fine. I remember having Rebecca on before the end of the season, before the start of the season, I should say. And one or two horses she was quite downbeat about. Yeah. And as soon as we mentioned this horse, she was like lit up, saying, "Oh, it's perfectly well at home."
I remember. I was on the show that night, and it's not. You don't like to see horses performing like that, and this was. I know it was Grade 2, but you know it was running against horses. The Closing Ceremony had an official mark of 138. I do think that horse is better than that for its win at Haydock, but this is like handicap form and Grade 2 status. I mean, Emma Laval must have been absolutely delighted to get a Grade 2 status for this race. But Fisher's Cross jumped awkwardly again. Looks like the horse is feeling something, and it's got to be said, after more than that, another JP horse that has gone, you know, and now at Fisher's Cross. I mean, was this a factor in AP's decision? Did he look at JP's horses and perhaps think, what have I got there for next year?
No, he probably thought, well, that's time to hang up my boots.
Yeah.
But the one to take at this race, I know Closing Ceremony won it, but surely See You at Midnight is the one to take out it, because carrying, I think it was 11.13.
11.13.
To try and give £8 to the winner, who is a course and distance winner, by my recollection. That was a very smart performance because it was first time out.
Yeah, it was. You know, it tracked the leaders. It went second after 4 out. These races slightly concern me from a form point of view. I've just got this, rightly or wrongly, when you've got a red hot favourite. Well, it wasn't that red hot. I mean, on his best form at Fisher's Cross. I mean. Oh. You wouldn't be even money,
no.
You know, nowhere near. And when you've got a horse like that in the field, and you think of handicap marks, I'm always a little bit kind of what's going on around the rest of the field. Whether you really want to give your all just in case, or do you ride the race once you know that red hot jolly's actually beat? So. From a form point of view, I think it did highlight, I mean, both horses were up with the pace. It did highlight Closing Ceremony's form at Haydock. And if people go and have a look at Closing Ceremony's form behind that, I think you find it some very good handicap form.
And good Haydock form as well. I mean, that's the thing as well. Anything given a squeak for the World Hurdle, or was it a complete line for all of them?
Yeah, we're having absolutely no bearing on that. I'm absolutely sure of.
But as I say, it's such a shame about Fisher's Cross, and I really don't know what will happen there, because obviously the horses had problems. Probably take the rest of the season off and try to find out what the problem is. But it's such a shame when it's a horse you follow. I mean, the horse hadn't won for almost 2 years, but you suspected in that particular race. I thought even Mone was quite generous, because it would just stand out so many pounds clear of the rest.
Well, when you've got a horse so badly out of form, of which at Fisher's Cross, I mean, you could argue the horse looked to be going, it improved last time in Ireland, but at what time? I mean, I couldn't have backed that horse at any price. You know, I mean that because...
Yeah, I mean, we're not backers of even money shots, but I mean, if you looked at it from a perspective of even at its worst performance in the last 2 years, that horse should have won that race. At Fisher's Cross should have won that race.
Yeah, I mean...
Because it's even allowing for the fact that it digressed, or regressed, I should say.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was the fact is that even at the bare minimum, it should have won that race.
Yeah. For me, you know, when we're talking about looking at form, is I always, and I know people will be saying, well, don't be silly, if it was 10-1 course, you would have backed it. Well, honestly, I wouldn't have done, because I'd have looked at the race and thought, well, how can I get a handle on this? You know, because you've got a horse that's been inconsistent into it. How can you price the race up? Because you don't know, you base on his last run. And
a proverbial loser.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does happen. I'm trying to think, it will come to me in the next 10 minutes, another proverbial loser. There's another one that keeps getting beat at odds on.
There's plenty of losers I know, but I'm not sure what odds on it. I'm not sure you think about that.
I'll probably remember after the show's finished. Right, one more to talk about, and this was definitely Red up against Fletcher's Flyer. You think one would prefer better ground?
Yeah.
And obviously, definitely Red was the one that ran on at the end as well. And Richard Johnson gave it a Peter a ride after 3 from home, looking to, it needed to be pushed.
Yeah, this is Albert Bartlett, novice hurdle. Again, it's grade 2 in status. I mean, definitely Red had an official handicap mark of 129. Fletcher's Flyer in second, 143. So clearly, the handicap has got 1 or 2 things wrong, the first or the second, and I suggest that he's got the winner is under assessed. Of course, stepping up from 2 mile free at Catterick. Now, definitely Red, for me, travelled through the race like needed better ground, where I think Fletcher's Flyer was probably enjoying the ground. He was coping with the ground bad. So I think definitely Red did well to win. What's really interesting me about this race, I mean, when we're talking about the Albert Bartlett, I think that's a really, really strong division this year. I don't think this is going to have any reflection from that. But what I do want to talk about is definitely Red's run before that at Catterick. Now, there's a juvenile, a John Quinn's called Alagul Royal. Forgive me if the pronunciation's wrong. Now, have a good look at that horse. It had some good form at the beginning of the season, went to Cheltenham and had to give weight in a grade 2 race. And the form's kind of gone a little bit backwards, but the horse she's been running on bad ground she doesn't want. She ran at Bangor recently, and this definitely Red is certainly franked that form, and she must be a seriously well-handicapped horse, perhaps for something like the Fred Winter at Cheltenham on better ground. So just have a look over that form and stick it in your horse tracker.
It's worth noting that these 2 horses, definitely Red and Fletcher's Flyer, I mean, the 22, 25, 22 lengths clear of the rest.
And the third horse, has got a handicap mark of 135. I mean, I've rated definitely Red here 150, Fletcher's Flyer 152. When we're talking about the Albert Bartlett, I think this year you're probably going to need a horse in the late 150s, and I think these fall a little bit short.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with the fact that definitely Red stayed on.
Yeah.
Right, OK, that's a look back. The one news that just come to me as I was talking to you was West Wizard.
Oh, Nicky Henderson.
Nicky Henderson.
But do you know what? And I don't think that horse in any way is ungenerous. I just think that horse keeps on bumping into a real nice horse. I really do. I really do.
Well, maybe we'll end up talking about that, but it's been beaten at 1 to 5, 1 to 2.
Just send me an email.
OK. Yeah, absolutely. Right, now, after this break, a couple of weeks ago, Matt gave a big outsider for the Champion Hurdle. Is he still on it? We'll find out after the break.